low budget film production. That was our first industry panel. And this is our second industry panel. It's called The Buzz That Made the Film. What does that mean? It means that when you create a buzz around a film, that is what actually makes it exist. Low budget film production. That was our first. Oh my God! I'm getting it. And this is our second industry panel. Okay. It's called The Buzz. No, we don't want to do this. Okay, so this is the situation, and we want to talk about this because a lot of filmmakers, especially earlier on in their careers, do not quite grasp the importance of creating hype or buzz or PR or publicity around the film. And I'm not talking about big bucks and big, huge budget advertising, billboards and stuff like that. But in the press, in the media, writing about it, talking about it. And we have a wonderful panel here of people who are in that area, in that field, who will be able to talk to us about what it takes, how you go about it, how best to approach and how best to domesticate this area of press and media publicity so that your film is a success. The distribution of your film is a success. But before I go any further, let me introduce our panelists. So we are the Buzz That Made the Film panel of the Socially Relevant Film Festival New York 8th annual edition. And I have Mabel Pais. We'll start with Mabel. She's a journalist. She writes principally for Indian Panorama. Mabel writes a column for the Indian Panorama newspaper, a weekly online publication with 2 editions, one for the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and the other for Dallas, Texas. She also writes on the arts and entertainment, which includes film, music, concerts, and live theater, social issues, health and wellness, and spirituality. She is a contributor to the wellness book, 31-Day Food Revolution. And we are happy to have Mabel with us. She is a very ardent follower of the Socially Relevant Film Festival. And every year she gives us a huge coverage of a curtain raiser with a number of films and images. Thank you so much, Mabel. And then I have Bruno Chatelain, who is the editor-founder of filmfestival.com. This is an incredible site. Everybody who is at all interested or in film festivals should definitely check it out, www.filmfestivals.com. And it also selects Best of Fests curator. He is the curator, and one of our films this year comes from there as well. Bruno Chatelain has a long career in film distribution, branding, advertising, working with some of the major players. He co-founded filmfestivals.com. It regularly partners with the largest festivals and markets. And we are happy to say that we are proud partners of filmfestival.com and has served over 6,000 festivals worldwide and a community of 370,000 unique monthly visitors. It has newsletters that distributes to a base of 193,000 subscribers. The company was one of the VOD international pioneers in 2001 and has opened a film and festival matchmaking community and is the leader in digital new developments in the industry. He runs a consulting boutique, which is called Major Buzz Factory, which is very convenient because this is the buzz. And we have also Dan Gerlitz, owner and Soundview Media of Soundview Media Partners. Dan Gerlitz is the owner of Soundview Media Partners, an agency specializing in the establishment of distribution of documentaries. He entered the industry in 1984, spent time in sales and then in executive management roles for such companies as Entertainment One and Fox Lorber Associates prior to launching Soundview in 2010. Recent examples of Soundview projects include Escape from Room 18, American Heretics, and We Are Not Princesses. Again, there is a link, www.soundviewmediapartners.com. We also have Valerio Caruso. He is the director of Cine Europa, another huge platform which really reports about pretty much anything of interest in the film industry, with a bit of emphasis on European cinema, but also reports on us. So we are very happy to have Valerio as well as one of our festival partners. Valerio Caruso is the director of the website www.cineeuropa.org, a portal about European cinema in 4 languages, offering news, databases, services for promoting and the European cinema and in Europe and outside. As consultant, Valerio Caruso has been providing technical assistance to several national authorities, the European Commission and UNESCO in the field of cinema, culture, and audiovisual. Since November 2018, he is team leader of the project to support delegations of the European Union in the world in organizing film festivals. So we have very knowledgeable panelists here, and I am sure this is going to be great. But in order for these panelists to be able to chat and tell us all about what they do, we need a moderator. Therefore, we have a fantastic moderator, Chris Atamian. And Chris Atamian is a New York-based writer and filmmaker. He has published 6 translations from French and Western Armenian, a book of poetry, which was nominated for the National Book Award, and the forthcoming novel, Manhattan Boy. He has twice been awarded the Tolalian Literary Prize and is recipient of the Ellis Island Medal of Honor. His short films have screened at the Venice Biennale and at film festivals globally. Most recently, Resurrection Myth was a winner at the Be Heard competition. He continues to work as a branded content provider for advertising clients and volunteers for Armenian and socially relevant causes whenever possible. Christopher is a board member of the AGLA, Armenian Gay and Lesbian Association of New York, and an alumnus of Harvard, Columbia Business School, and USC Film School. So we have people here with fantastic credentials, great experience, and I am, for one, very keen on hearing all they have to say. For our attendees, I just want to say that please feel free to put your questions in the chat or in the Q&A, and eventually at some convenient point towards the end of the discussion, I'm going to address them. I give you the mic, my dear Chris.
All right, can everyone hear me out there? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, good. So no one should take this personally. I'm going to start with Dan Gerlitz because I happen to know Dan a little bit, and I write for Dan, and I think he's extremely knowledgeable and a great starting point. So I asked each one of you to send in a question or two so that I could get an idea of what you wanted to discuss. So Dan, you wrote something very interesting back. You said, as Don Lucchese said in Godfather 3, all ships must sail in the same direction. And that basically you tied into tying the filmmaker into the release setup and the launch with their distributor, social media, and PR. So basically getting all your ducks in line, right? That was one of the issues that you want to discuss. And the other thing that you wrote that interests you was packaging the film itself, so that the press release being your film's resume and how you package an entire film and how you use that as a calling card. So those are the two things that you, I think, thought might be more important that you want to discuss. Why don't you just take it from here and let us know what you think is most important in terms of creating a buzz, either from those two things or something else that you've thought of since. The mic is yours.
I don't want to monopolize too much and try and cover, everything within those two comments. So let's start with all ships must sail in the same direction.
Right.
Um, to put it in perspective, I've probably caused the release of 3,000 movies in my career, maybe more. As Soundview, it's in the 600 range, okay, across 10 years. And what I've learned is in many cases, an independent filmmaker turns over different aspects of getting the film distributed to different people. Okay, so there might be a publicist on board, maybe there's not. There might be a social media person on board, maybe there's not, and they're doing it themselves. Um, when there is a team, what I find probably more often than not is that the team members are not necessarily all talking to each other.
Right.
And I have this issue with the film that's going up onto public broadcasting the beginning of April, um, where we finally said, you know what, we need to have a weekly meeting on Monday morning to make sure that we've caught up with what we're doing and setting the stage for what has to happen in the next 5 days or the next 4 days or whatever the case may be, to make sure that everybody is passing the baton properly, right? A press release is important, but if there's no call to action in the press release, we have a problem. So that press release has to be circulated with a call to action, meaning you can get the DVD here or you can get a screening copy for review here. Um, and if it goes out too early, you might actually blow your opportunity, right? Because a press release that goes out too early without availability of the film in whatever's being promoted, it might be that the film's just going to be in a festival and you want to promote that. Uh, the big press release is upon availability, right? So it's sort of funny because I just watched The Godfather 3 again because it's one of my top favorite films. That line, all ships must sail in the same direction, seems so appropriate when there's a group of people trying to coordinate an effort,
Right.
to make sure that effort, is brought to the top of the game. Um, I think that sort of answers that question. Packaging, I think we should talk about. Well, I'll bring it up very, very briefly. Um, there's a poster. Your film is in a festival and you've created a poster, or your film is lucky enough to have been in some kind of theatrical venue before the world shut down theatrical venues, and there's a poster. Um, that poster may or may not be conducive to DVD. Um, and if you think the DVD business is over, think again. My involvement in films, I would say that 65% of the revenue is coming from physical media. Okay, that's DVDs or Blu-rays or whatever is lending itself. But that is where the money is, clearly. And maybe it won't be in 2 or 3 years. But anyway, you have this poster, and there are designers who really know how to make a great poster. When that poster is shrunk to what is now the 1 inch rule, years ago it was the 6 foot rule. You would hang up a DVD piece of art, it would be this big. You'd hang it up on a wall, you'd walk back 6 or 7 feet, and you would say, is that standing up from 6 feet away? Well, now there's not so much retail. So the question is, when it's a thumbnail on Amazon or any of these sites, is it standing up? Is the title treatment popping so you can read it? Are there too many montage images that just become a blurry background, right? And there are rules to that. So a great poster doesn't necessarily turn into a great business card, which is actually the DVD cover of your film at 1 inch. And, for a fun exercise, go onto Amazon and put in any search term under movies and look at the boxes that really work when they're 1 inch tall.
Right.
So,
okay, so that's very interesting. And if I understand what the first part of it is really about timing and coordination between the different people that are working on a campaign to make sure that you're all on the same page. Otherwise, you're self-defeating.
Correct.
What you're doing. Awesome. So that's a great beginning. I think Bruno's going to want to get back to us on the all ships quote. So hold on to that, Bruno. But right now I'm going to go to Mabel. So we had a very good, I think, general overall view there about some important issues. And from there, we're going to go to something a little bit more restrained, but very important. And I write about film, so I love to talk to other people like Mabel who write about film. So Mabel, you write for the Indian Panorama newspaper, among other publications. And I think one of the things that you find important is giving an opportunity to smaller films and bringing that first attention of the film to a public that might not otherwise get it. Is that correct?
You have no micro. Mabel, you have
the mic, Mabel. You got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
First of all, thank you, Nora, for having me on this very esteemed company on this panel. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, all right, great. And I'm honored to be on this panel. I'm sorry, what was your question, Christopher?
Oh, so we had a very sort of a good general introduction by Dan on some of the on sort of a campaign and the importance of having everyone have all their ducks in a row and be on the same page. Otherwise, it's kind of self-defeating. And from that, I want to go something a little bit more precise, which is just the writing of a press release or a first encounter that the reader has with a film, which is what you do as a writer for Indian Panorama and for some other publications. So if you want to talk to why you think that's so important and how you do that and create buzz by writing about an early release, either in an article or a press release, go right ahead. Whatever you think is important about that.
Yes, I started writing on the Socially Relevant Film Festival 5 years ago. Well, let me give you a little background. I had just returned from overseas. While listening to the radio, I heard the announcement about the festival. The title aroused my interest. I checked out the website and thought I must write about this festival. I contacted Nora Armani. She was very prompt in acknowledging my mail and invited me as press. I love not only the title, but also the mission of the festival. Nora organizes the festival in a very unpretentious way. She has expressed time and again her reason for starting this film festival as something very close to her heart. One aspect of thing that leads to a successful film pre-release is doing a curtain raiser on the festival. So I try to do that, 3 or 4 weeks before the festival begins. So the readers would get the buzz about a festival which may be of interest to them, and they could register, for the festival, participate. And I think that helps to a great extent to get a distributor.
Okay, so basically getting it out on time and sort of giving people advance notice so that there's enough of a pre-buzz to the actual release. Okay, good. That's very interesting. So is there anything else you want to say right away, or we'll get back to you after? Or
yeah, maybe later, yeah.
Okay, so then let's go. So Bruno, why don't we talk to you, Bruno, for a second or two or a couple of minutes. So you have worked as a festival agent in the past, and you've repped and you've created films, and some of them are actually quite big films that people might have known that were large box office films. And I think you talked about Boys in the Hood as being one of them in your note to me. Do you want to talk to us about the importance of properly curating and repping films and what that involves, and maybe use an example of one film in particular?
Sure.
It might be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe there are 2 comments now to what Dan and Mabel just pointed out. All ships must sail to the same direction. I would just I like the idea that, yeah, you need to go to where the people are going to watch your film. That's your goal. You're leaving A and planning to go to B. But what I really strongly want to say is the route from A to B depends on the wind, but mostly depends on your vision. And the routes are very, 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 very different and multiple. I insist on that. I witnessed that in my career, starting at a big advertising agency, working for Colgate, Procter and Gamble, Henkel, you name it, Johnson and Johnson, etc., big brands. The motto at that time was unique selling property or proposition, whatever, USP, basically one message.
Right.
And I moved from that commercial industry to film, and I discovered that film is so rich that you can play, you can leverage, you can use a variety of angles. And your job as a distributor, which is someone who is a messenger, someone who is a go-between, helping the film go from A in the closet to B, the public, the audience. Your role is to define the vision and have your team understand it and develop it and control that. But the things you will be doing will be different whether you're talking, for instance, when you release a film from Woody Allen, you will say some things like pick up the journalist that will say that his best film ever. Then you will want to target audiences that you know are similar. For instance, the people who like the films from Scorsese. And if you have the luxury I had to release films from both of them, you would plug a trailer of Woody Allen in front of Scorsese print in the theater, so that, etc. So basically, I'm saying it's very important, your plan, communication plan, that includes publicity that leads to buzz, but also includes the advertising, the title, the things you're doing around, must be conceived as an impressionist picture with touches of color here and there. Each would be resonating to a specific audience. So don't be scared to think that maybe it's okay to say different things to different people, provided they all serve the same goal, which is present the movie at its best angle and talk to whatever people want to hear, are most inclined. So that's one thing about selling. It's not like, all right, I want to see one head only. No, you need to go on the field and take advantage of whatever you see where you could. Secondly, the thing Mabel and Dan mentioned about the press release, I'd say first, and I'm sure, Chris, that's important for you. The first thing you need to do is hire someone who writes well. Hire a writer to fine-tune your synopsis, and really spend a week, 2 weeks if you need, but each word needs to be thought and rethought, basically it's like elevator pitch. If you are capable of telling your film what your film is about in 15 seconds, you're good. If you need 2 minutes, I think the film will be in trouble because it's not clear enough. So basically have the writing start with writing the best synopsis. Then the second very important step is not only the press release, is your electronic press kit, the publicity kit. And start thinking whatever you need to put together so that people understand and the film and want to see it and are convinced that there's something for them. So it's gathering all the elements in one element, and the press release, and actually a series of press releases like you mentioned, advance, going in, then the results or whatever happened in the film festival, all of these, yes, must be made sweet and strong. And yes, that's very important. And of course, behind this, if you have luxury to have a distributor, then you have a database of whoever you need to send the press release to. But if you're not, as an indie filmmaker, build your own press release, your own press the listing. Every time you see an influential film critic, try to get his email and put that in a list so that whenever you have something to say, you can just release it. And
all right,
yeah.
Thanks, Bruno. No, that's very interesting, and it's funny because you said about the being precise in your writing and that being like the first thing that someone sees. I remember I had an editor at the Village Voice, and she was actually the dance editor at the time, and she would get hundreds of press releases, and she'd say, "I know from the first 2 sentences if I want to go see this performance." And I said to her, "Well, why do you know that early in the process?" And she's like, "Because it's about professionalism and only having so many hours in the day, and I can always tell it's for people that take the time to write a really well-crafted press release, with every sentence tells me something quickly, that also has the good performance, usually, I mean, not always." So I agree with that. And so you're basically addressing also the question of branding and targeting, and then that fits in well with what Dan was talking about, in the sense of then making sure that it's well aligned and that everyone's on the same boat. Sorry to use the same metaphor, Dan, of, putting it through.
Well, I'm glad my metaphor is becoming the center of attraction, but
yes, it is.
I'd like to comment on something.
And then we'll go to Valerio. Go ahead, Dan.
The elevator pitch that Bruno was talking about translates into that short synopsis, okay? Right? Because when you work, I work with distribution all day long, right? And most of them, and most platforms, whether they're selling physical media or digital media, they're going to want a short synopsis and a long synopsis, and their parameters may vary a little bit, right? But let's use Amazon because it's such a huge portal for a moment. That short synopsis is all the consumer is going to see when they get to Amazon. Amazon doesn't port over the long synopsis. It's the short one, right? So that first sentence, absolutely, that first sentence that your dance editor was talking about, literally will make or break a film. And when you go on to platforms like, Verizon Fios or Comcast, right? You're lucky if you get a sentence and a half on screen about the movie, and then the person decides whether they're going to watch the trailer or not. So fine-tuning that, as Bruno mentioned, is really something that is of the utmost importance.
Right. I mean, the worst thing you want to hear as a filmmaker is like, "Oh, the poster's really horrible, but the film is quite good." I mean, if you have to start reinterpreting, bad items in a
I mean, it all sort of adds up. And then, Bruno's comment about messaging in relation to film versus selling, a widget is also very true, because your film will have a dynamic reach, and part of the film may be of interest to this audience, and part of the film may be interested in that audience, and getting those different messages out to different audiences, using social media or however you're using it. It's funny, when a filmmaker contacts me, I have a leading question, and it's one of those interview questions. They're talking to me about potentially representing the film, and I'll ask them this question. I'll say, "Who's your film for?" And if they say everybody, I want to hang up.
Right.
Because in my opinion, there's very few films, and I only have one that I use as an example, that's really for everybody, right? What I want to hear is the target for this audience, the target for this film is this. There's the bullseye. Then there's the peripheral. But what is the bullseye? I mean, how many films that you've watched over the years are really for everybody? To me, Finding Nemo is for everybody, and very few others really are, So you have to think about that part of your verbal elevator pitch. Who's the film for? It's for African Americans of 50 years or older. You know, it's for, you know, white housewives who are sitting around in their suburbs, or, you know, whatever target you're coming up with, and define it so that a distributor
Sure.
knows where to point the gun.
Right. Well, that's a good lead-in actually to Valerio. Valerio, where are you? Thank you, Dan. Valerio, are you there?
Yes, yes. Sorry,
Okay.
I was mute.
Ciao. So you have a very interesting CV and great experience as well, working both with large film festivals, smaller film festivals, and both, you know, larger release and small films. What you wrote about was that you take a particular pleasure in bringing films that people might not otherwise see some more visibility. Do you want to talk about how you create buzz for these types of films? I mean, obviously, anyone, as you said, can go to the Cannes Film Festival website and know who won the Palme d'Or, but it might be more difficult if it's at a, I don't know, a smaller festival and it's a film from Albania or Greece or wherever. If you want to discuss that, I think that'd be very interesting. And if there's anything else you want to discuss,
Sorry,
please feel free.
Chris, the communication is very, very bad. Can you just repeat the question? Because
Yeah. So I think what you wrote in about was the fact that you like bringing visibility to smaller films sometimes that maybe people wouldn't see.
Okay.
Because, you know, people go to the Cannes Film Festival or Tribeca where they're better known films, but and that sort of is more obvious to access and also distribute. So do you want to talk about how you bring buzz to smaller films or
Yeah,
films
of
that you
course.
think are jewels that we might not otherwise have?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, and then I want to talk about social media a bit with everyone. Okay, so go ahead.
Then we can talk about social media. But what I was thinking when Dan was speaking, and also Bruno, about it's very important to have a good synopsis, good professionals behind the promotional material. Of course, that's really important, but it's most important to have a good film. So there is no promotion if you don't have a good product. So for me, as a curator or as a journalist or a director of a website who has to promote films across the world, we have to need a good material, a good film. It's impossible to do the promotion. It's impossible to promote a film if the film is not good. And I talk as a curator, so as a person who selects films.
Although Hollywood actually does a good job of that, right? Well, Hollywood is often the opposite. They're able to do good buzz on films that are often not very good. You know, you see
Yes,
the Avengers,
that would
and then you
be,
go see
yeah.
it. It's a little disappointing. So,
So for us, it's very difficult to, you know, to find also good films. As a curator of film festivals, I would say that 60% of the films we watch to select into the festival are not good. So we cannot talk or we cannot promote those films which are simply not good. And I'm talking about the majority of the films which are made. I'm sorry to say that, but there is no public for such films, and they're just made sometimes because there is financing which is available. So those films are made, but it's absolutely difficult to promote. Now, talking about the good films, of course we have a lot of good films, of course, but we started 20 years ago when, you know, internet was really in the early ages, and we thought, okay, we have to do something for European cinema to show that European cinema is unified, and then we have to talk with a common voice.
Right. And Valerio, if I can interrupt you 1 second for people who might have just joined, you're talking about www.cineeuropa.org, and it's a portal for European cinema in particular. So in case someone joined in, that's what he's referring to. So go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So the idea was to create something to promote European cinema, and our expectation were far behind our expectation, because we have now almost 1 million visitors per month coming from all over the world because we are in 4 languages. So there is really an appetite for European films around the world. We are in English, we are in Spanish, we are in French, but for example, we have a lot of people coming from Europe reading our articles and looking for our films. So this shows that there is really a big interest for European culture, European cinema around the world.
Okay, and so I'm reading a couple of questions. So one person, so these are general comments, would like people to talk to the issue of documentary films as well, rather than feature films per se. So if anyone wants to discuss if there's a difference between how you deal with a documentary film versus a feature film as a general rule, because obviously every film is different, that's one thing. And then after that, I want to ask all of you, Mabel, Dan, Bruno, Valerio, I'm very interested in social media because now I've worked in advertising most of my life, and everything from advertising to digital film distribution, a lot of it now hinges on all the different social media platforms. And what do you do about it? Do you ignore it? Do you exploit it? How do you exploit it? What percentage of your time do you spend? Whatever you want to address, and whoever wants to talk can. So let's do the documentary thing first. Does anyone want to address documentary filmmaking?
Happy to do so.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got Bruno too. Can we go Bruno first, Dan after? Yeah? Does that work? Okay, Bruno, each one of you gets 4 minutes or 5 minutes. How's that? 4 minutes. Go. Or 5.
Well, as a curator of my Best for Fest, the films I select, I really enjoy working with documentary filmmakers and helping them navigate the festival circuit, being selected, being visible, and all of that. And I must say that doing the publicity for a documentary is exactly the same job as the one around a feature film. The difference is sometimes you don't have name actors. Sometimes you do. I handled a documentary which was produced by anyway, a very important actor, and that helped because he's going to be invited to present his movie, etc. But all the rules I mentioned apply. It's about the same job in my view, and I must say that in some cases. You find in documentaries stories you don't find in feature films. Some stories in the films are so weak. Some stories in documentaries are so strong, and that speaks for the film and help the documentary stand out in the festival circuit. It's only a different job in terms of having to select the festivals that you want to premiere your film or your documentary or the one you're selecting, because there's a niche and there's also a series of festivals that play both genres, like generic film, like any type of film, and documentaries, or those festivals that are focusing on documentaries. So that's kind of a long strategy to discuss. But
okay, gotcha. So I want to get to Mabel because we haven't heard from her in a while. But before that, Dan wanted to say something. Dan, can you kind of work what you were going to say around the issue of short documentaries? Because one of our people attending wanted to know not just documentary, but short documentaries. Is there a market for short documentaries, and that can help provide some remunerations for shorts? So in other words, I guess, how do you? It is what it is. The question is, what does this apply for shorts as well, and what's the market? Dan, can you address that and maybe talk about what you're going to say before that? Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. So
I apologize. I'm trying to read from the corner, so it's kind of.
The market for short films is changing, I think, now. For many, many years, it was very hard to get short films to be exposed. Distributors did not have interest in them because it was so DVD oriented. And of course, you need to define short film, right? Because the definition of that could be 3 minutes to, I've seen definitions as high as 40 and 45 minutes.
Right. Okay.
and there's definitely a difference. What seems to be changing in the market right now is digital, right? Where a DVD of a 25-minute film could be very difficult in anything other than the educational arena, which could be monetized and could be exploited, meaning university licensing or something like that, teachers in classrooms. There are platforms now that are seeking shorts because, especially because of COVID, attention span has gotten very, very short, right? So people may not, they might be waiting in the dentist office and they have 15 minutes and they don't want to start a movie or start a series. They want to watch something that's going to take 15 minutes or 12 minutes or something like that. So those opportunities are in fact opening up. I'm working with a particular label right now that's looking for short films. That's what they want, for digital exploitation only on an SVOD platform.
Are you allowed to say what company that is, or what?
No, I'm gonna leave that out. If anybody wants to, I'll put my email inside.
Perfect. Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
But I want to go back to the broader thing about documentaries. While some of that initiative is probably the same as a feature film, I actually don't agree that it's the same. It follows a very different track. And when I launched my company, I decided to focus specifically on documentaries. So say 97% of what I represent are documentaries. Okay. And the social media aspect is different. The messaging is different. Where you're going to sell the film is going to be different. So I think that needs to be considered. The general process of, do I need a press release? Yes. Do I need a package? Yes. Do I need to have all ships sailing in the same direction? Yes. Okay. But when it comes to a documentary, especially one that's dealing with a social issue, okay, you're going to need to reach out to that particular audience in a different way than through the entertainment media, right?
Sure.
So, for instance, I'm on the board of the Holocaust Education Film Foundation, right? We are working like crazy to reach the audiences that are interested in that subject, and that have nothing to do with film. It's just that historical subject that we need to reach. Do we need the entertainment press? Yes. Are they going to pick it up? Maybe, maybe not. But all of a sudden, other sorts of publications and online sites, are interested in this, and other audiences. So you have to think a little differently about who you're reaching out to with what messaging.
Thank you. No, that's great. It's true. Anyone who's been on a subway sees that people are watching films like on their phones even now. So that's right. One thing. And the other thing is, with digital distribution, which is not something I knew until recently, a lot of these companies, they aggregate film, like on an Amazon Prime channel. They'll aggregate the total number of minutes that they show things. So if they have 4 shorts that people watch one after another, it kind of comes out to being the same as having a full-length film feature, which wouldn't have been the case before when you couldn't watch it in that way. So thanks for that comment. And then I want to ask Mabel, because she seems like she's been wanting to say something for a bit, to talk for a minute. And then Valerio, someone asked if you can define the 60% of the bad movies. Is it because of the content, the way they're made technically? So if you want to think about that for a couple of minutes. And then Mabel, where are you?
Yeah, speaking of documentaries and shorts, this has been of interest to me in the recent times. There's a very interesting film that comes to mind, which was also nominated for the Academy Awards. I won't mention the name because it will be a plug for the film, but it's the one of the main actors is a deaf blind actor. And from what I understand, there has never been a deafblind actor playing the role of a deafblind person, which has never happened before. So I think we should have more of those kind of films. It's just my opinion.
You mean films that portray people that they might not?
Yeah, with so-called
Usually.
disabilities, as we use the word disability. What is a disability? So I would suggest we have more films like that.
Right, and create a buzz kind of around the fact that this is something different and that we're bringing a new
Yeah,
audience in. Got it.
yeah, these people are just different. They are not disabled.
Okay, so let's go to Valerio very quickly. Valerio, it's a kind of an interesting question. I answered, is it, it's Brett out in the audience. He wants to know how the 60% of bad films may be broken down. My answer, I would have thought was just overall bad, but what does that mean to you? I mean, is it mainly content? I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on it because it's not really about buzz per se, but address it however you like.
It's a multiple question answer, in the sense that, first of all, I would say that I'm watching a lot of European, of course, and African films. So I cannot speak about US films, or what we see on US is mainstream and Hollywood films. In Europe, we have a problem with scripts and scenarios. So the scenarios sometimes are not well developed. On other cases, we have an acting problem. So this is something that arrives quite often. So the way the film is directed with the actors. Sometimes it's a good idea. So starting with a very good idea of the film. So the first 20 minutes of the film is good, but then there is no rhythm, and the film is just not following the good idea. So it's many factors that brings that the films is not interesting for 1 hour and a half. So this is my opinion. We are working with several people to select films, and many times we arrive at the same conclusion. It's not because a film is slow or because it's only with 2 or 3 actors. It's not the kind of things that we take in consideration. It's
Right,
just
so you're going back to the writing and the quality of the talent. Interesting. Okay, great. Thank you. Just so that everyone knows on timing, we've been here about 50 minutes. It's gone by very quickly. So we have about 10, 15 more minutes. Does anyone of the 4 of you want to talk about social media, either how you create buzz for a film around social media, or which social media you tend to prefer, how you decide how much of a budget to allocate, whatever it is that you think. Because I think this is very interesting that I know several people who work either in film on the talent side or who are in the management of film companies, and they also wonder, should we have someone there all day twittering about our film, or is it not worth doing? Which social media to use? So those are some of the issues that I've heard on that side of the creating buzz.
I have two quick things that I'd like to just impart.
Okay, quick, go.
The answer is yes. You need to be on social media. Okay, that's where people are reading. You need to get on it early because it takes a long time to build that network. Okay, and a network of 25 people is not going to net you results that you're going to be happy with. Okay, and which platform you choose. I mean, I'm on 3. Okay, I use Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Some people believe in Instagram in a big way. I'm not a big believer, but there are people who are. Okay, but here's something I think you need to really do from the minute you start to conceive of a film. Everybody you touch, everybody who looks at you with interest, get their name and email address and make a list. And this is really important for documentaries that are addressing some kind of subject matter and stuff. And the example that I'm going to use is this. Several years ago, I was working with a filmmaker who had a film called Greedy Lying Bastards. Okay, it was basically about the politic of owning politicians, okay, right, and how they get bought, right? During the course of that production, he assembled 1,500 people who said, oh, that would be interesting. Oh, I'd like to see that when it's done, right? And when we as a distributor got ready to release that film, he gave us that list and we hit it. And the number of orders that came in from just that list was close to 400. Well, that was, $4,000, $5,000 right off one email blast. Okay. Right. So keep track of everybody. No matter how weak they can always unsubscribe from your list. They can always ignore it, but keep track of them and hit them when the time comes when the film is available.
Of course, that's great advice. Bruno, do you have anything you want to say about that? About social media in general? Je crois que ton micro ne marche pas là. Attends. Can you hear? Bruno? Yeah, it's back on. Okay.
Yeah, of course, the listing you build, in 20 years, I've built a database of 195,000 film professionals, people who love film through the angle of festivals. So you can do it. Any filmmaker can do it. There are lots of ways you can build this. Anytime you go to a film festival, you can grab the list and get all the emails, etc. So that's really vital. Secondly, I'm not really comfortable with the question because for me, social media is just one element. So yeah, they are important. Yeah, they are part of the things your strategy you build, and it's only the reflection of the things that you have built, the elements that will speak about your film that you put in different places. Yes, but don't think that having a social presence is the way to sell the film. That's only one. And also, when I heard Dan say, if someone says something, I'm going to hang up. When he says it's a film for everyone, I would just say that if someone tells me that he thinks he has the answer for everything in terms of marketing and selling his film, then I say, well, find someone else, because there's one thing you should know is you don't know everything. And there's another thing you should learn is when you build a team, you get people who know in different in the variety of specific jobs, and you put them together around the table and you build something for. So I think it's okay for a producer or a director to say, shit, I don't know, I made this movie because I wanted to make it. It was important, but I'm not exactly sure what's the target, what's the audience is, can help me. And that must be a discussion. It's not your producer, unless you're talking to someone really important in the studio that has made 15 10-pole films, and everyone will listen because it's going to cost your job if you say no to him. But anyway, so it's very important to understand that each film is different, and there's a different recipe for film, for feature, for short, for documentary. But basically, same rule apply, which are listen, trying to find the different ways to the angles, what sells, and how you can find the people who like the things that are built in the film or the feature, and go for it in different ways.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm going to ask, is Nora listening? Is she there somewhere? Nora?
Yes, I am.
You want to? We're at 56 minutes. You want to add anything?
Well, I love this conversation and the way.
I know it could go on forever. It's just on.
Yeah.
How to write a good tweet. It's a tweet. So go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just wanting to say that this is really going very well. I am not being able to bring myself on, but it's better.
Very well.
You can hear me, right?
And see you.
Yeah, and you can see me.
Yeah.
How can I not see myself on the screen?
Oh, you're there.
Okay, great. So as long as you guys can see me. So yeah, what I wanted to say is that this is important. It's a very important discussion we are having, because like I agree with Bruno, each film has a different recipe, and as each festival has a different approach, and as each film has to find the right festival for it and the right audience. And that's why we are called the Socially Relevant Film Festival. You will be surprised at the number of films we get every year submitted to us that are totally off track. And I go, these poor filmmakers, they are wasting their money because they're paying a submission fee. I'm not going to refund it to them. I mean, come on, this is how we also operate. But it's important to know which festivals you are approaching, just like it's important to know which audience your film is good for. But it's a whole learning process, and people come, and if it's the wrong film, then we won't select it. But if it's the right film, then it will have a platform, it will have a possibility.
Well, also, I've watched about 40 of your trailers to talk to a friend about what we might want to look at in more depth for something, for another project that we have or for another company. And it's very important that you segment things correctly. And then when you look at a trailer, for example, that you know right away what it's about, because you can't watch 2 hours of 40 films. That's like your entire week.
Absolutely. And the other point I want to raise is what Dan was saying in terms of the approach, which can be different, because usually it's not always that you get the main media, the mainstream entertainment media to get interested, especially with smaller, more fragile films, unknown directors, no star names. There is a very good chance that these films will not be covered in Hollywood Reporter, Variety, or even in Écran Total, or even other major entertainment publications. But if it's a film about Holocaust, then you go to groups that could be interested in that. You go to non-theatrical distribution. You go to places where a buzz can be created around it outside of the conventional means. And again, at the end, all of this can be put together. And when there is the buzz going already, the mainstream media might suddenly say, oh, wait a minute. Why are all these people talking about that? It must be important. So maybe I should also say something. So in a way, you have to be open and flexible. But to come back to what Valerio was saying, first and foremost, the film has to be good. And that's what the Socially Relevant Film Festival does as well. It's true, we are about themes and issues and social problems, and that's what films have to talk about. But we don't go because a film is great social issue, then we go, okay, we should program it if it has bad production values, bad acting, or the script didn't quite hit the right marks. We have to first and foremost look at the quality of the film as a film, and then the subject matter, and then the audience, who it is for, and so on and so forth. So let me also see if there is other people, because people email contacts information for the panelists. Okay, somebody wants email contacts for the panelists, and I have to ask the panelists if they want that. If they do, then maybe you can yourselves put it in the chat for panelists.
Right. I think Dan did already with his, so.
Yeah.
So anyone else wants to do
I would say, if you want to continue for another 5 minutes, that's fine. I allow that, but not longer, because I have to be on another Zoom at 4 o'clock. We are back to back because it's the festival week.
Okay, so Bruno, can you maybe talk about Boys in the Hood for 4 minutes? And then, did you want to say something, Dan? I see you on the big screen. No?
Yeah, thanks for occasion. Yeah, I want to, because that's, I think, a very good example of how buzz can change your life, your career as a filmmaker. I had this example and his experience working on Boys in the Hood, which was a film from first-time director John Singleton for Sony. And I got the film in January, and they sent it to me as thinking, let's pitch for Cannes. And I sent it to Gilles Jacob, who, surprised to us, said, "You're in." And I remember very specifically, that's February, Cannes is in May. And I said to myself, wow, that's amazing news, but I don't know a thing about the Black cinema. Let's find someone who knows so we can make things happen. And we found one journalist. So that's how you build your buzz, by concentric circles getting larger and larger. So we found someone who knew very well the history of Black cinema. And we showed it to him. He was the first person in the world besides the studio to watch the movie on the tape in my office, and he came out red-eyed saying, "My God, Orson Welles, it's amazing." And that's how we started. So we worked on the buzz for 4 months, reaching to Cannes. We started showing the film to specific groups, and built a word of mouth that preceded the Cannes presentation. In Cannes, we brought, to make sure, what's important in the festival is you have in the room the people who you know will like the movie. So instead of only the farts and the suits from the executives from the studio, we got people from the suburbs, the kids from the suburbs. We built the room, basically. We turned down tons of people because we'd created so much buzz. We had artists, graffiti artists in the street who painted the poster. We did everything that was authentic to the film itself, including the music. We had a rap party. We flew Ice Cube. And of course, that's the difference because you are Sony, you can afford the flight tickets and the hotel, etc., and pay for the party. But anyway, success down the line.
That's very interesting.
Hold on. At the end of the story, that's the only time I had this in my career. At the end of the festival, the head of the studio shook hands, said, "Thank you, Bruno. Thank you, team. I'm going to change the box office estimate. We had 30 million box office US and Canada. I'm going to change it to 50. So an additional 20, meaning another 20 for international. It didn't do 50, it did 57. So my point is, Cannes, the buzz, had provided an initial about 50 million bucks and made the career of John. He was nominated, the youngest director at the Oscar with 2 nominations. So my point is, it was a fairy tale from beginning to ending, but with work. Work was involved, and giving the dimension, a dynamic dimension to your buzz, creating buzz that was going larger and larger until it hit the right people. And it's it's very precise because, just for instance, we are in 1995 or something like that. People hate rap in France. So I had to build the party where we had Ice Cube perform so that they would accept it. So I got a clown at the entrance of the club called Django Reinhardt, who made people laugh, and so just to break the ice. So everything very, very.
So you're talking still. It's about knowing what is correct for each film and how you bring out qualities that people might not know about.
Festival, if you do it right, can bring your career to.
Sounds good. Okay. Anyone else want to put in a last word, or should we call it a day? Dan, Mabel, Valerio?
I have something that I think is worth mentioning. And this is very specific to documentaries, really, but budget is not the be all end all. I have films that filmmakers have spent inordinate amounts of money on that perform or don't. And I have films that, cost as little as $12,000 that have way over indexed and made a lot of money. So when it comes to a documentary, it's really about the content,
right?
Of that particular content subject. And I think that that's interesting because not everybody needs to sell their house to make a film that's going to be great.
All right. Well, that's definitely good to know. All right, Nora, you want to wrap it up? You have to put your microphone on.
I know.
Right.
This is a very good way to a note to end on, and that is the fact that you don't have to sell your house.
Your house, thank God.
And you don't have to, necessarily make a big movie to create a buzz. That's why it's called buzz, because if it's a big movie, you can go and find it in a big festival or a big whatever. And that's part of the reason, part of what we pride ourselves as a festival. And that is, we don't necessarily run after the big films that are making a big buzz in the big festivals and invite them to come to Socially Relevant Film Festival, but we go with films that would otherwise not be seen. Fragile films, small films, filmmakers that need the platform. And of course, eventually they could become the big film that made it. So we kind of pride ourselves with that. And I think everybody here will agree that you don't have to start off with a big film. Earlier in the cafe this morning, somebody was saying, how do you get a small money, a little bit of money coming from a film? And the answer was, you start with a lot of money. So, I mean, it's a joke, but right. You can also do the other way around. There are so many films in the history of cinema, that started with a small budget. They were the sleepers. They were the unexpected, no star names, good story, good structure, good buzz, good, little by little, one brick after another, the right festivals, the right approach, and then they made it big. So, yeah, I mean, I want to take this opportunity and thank everyone, because we could go on forever on this topic. It's so important, and it's so important for filmmakers as well. And unfortunately, we have to limit the time. So I want to thank you all again, Mabel, Bruno, Valerio, Dan, and Chris, most of all, for running the show for us.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thank everyone. And yeah, continue what you guys are doing, because you are there for the filmmakers. And this is very, very important.
Okay. Bye, guys. Bye, Nora. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.